Okay, you're not going to believe this. I mean, honestly, can you even wrap your head around it? Eliza is acting like I committed some kind of, I don't know, unforgivable sin. A federal crime, you'd think I'd burned her studio to the ground, God, but no, it's about a painting. A single, ridiculously gloomy painting, and for that I get completely ghosted. My texts are green, green, you know what that means. My calls go straight to voicemail, not even a ring. It's like a digital guillotine came down and just severed. Wiped from her life like I never existed for the last 10 years. It's insane, right? Utterly insane. The thing that's really like getting under my skin, the thing I just can't shake, is that my only crime was caring too much. I was only trying to help her, that's it. That was the whole goal. To help, she was spiraling, totally stuck in her own head about this big art exhibition, and her painting was, well, it was a masterpiece of misery. Honestly, so I did something about it. I saw a problem and I fixed it. I made it better. I gave it a little push in the right direction because she was too close to it to see straight. And this is the thanks I get: radio silence and a reputation as some kind of 10,000-foot tall monster among our friends. As if I'm the villain here. I keep replaying it in my head, trying to find the part where I was wrong, but I just can't see it. I was being a good friend. A proactive, supportive friend. She's the one who's blowing this whole thing up into a catastrophe. What would you have done? Seriously. You would have done the same thing if you actually cared about her winning. I was just trying to do the right thing for her career. It was all for her. Look, Eliza and I, we go way back, like 10 years back. She's always been the quiet one, the intense one. The one who'd remember I had a dentist appointment and text me good luck an hour before. You know the type. The person who, if you call them at 3 a.m. because you're having a meltdown, they don't just answer, they show up with a pint of your favorite ice cream. That's her. She's a giver. Always has been. Honestly, it's a bit much sometimes, like she doesn't have her own life to worry about, but that's just how she's wired. A little plain, a little boring, but reliable. So when this exhibition came up, it was supposed to be her big break, her moment. And God, did she work for it? She basically became a hermit. For 6 months, her studio was like a cave she never left. I'd bring her coffee and she'd have paint in her hair, dark circles under her eyes, and she'd smell like turpentine and desperation. She poured every single ounce of herself into this one canvas. She called it Echo. I tried to be supportive, I really did. I'd ask to see it and she'd get all shy and protective, saying it wasn't ready. Finally, about a month ago, she let me in for the grand reveal. And oh God, I mean, I'm not an art critic, but I have eyes, It was heavy. That's the only word for it. It was this huge canvas, mostly shades of gray and this deep, bruised purple. It was supposed to be a landscape, I guess, but it felt more like an emotional black hole. There was this feeling of, I don't know, oppressive silence. It was technically brilliant, sure, the brushwork was insane, but the feeling, it was suffocating. It was the kind of art you look at and immediately need a drink. I tried to be gentle. I said, wow, Eli, that's really powerful. But in my head, I'm screaming. Because I know how this world works. I know the judges for this show. They're not looking for a visual representation of despair. They want something with life, with energy, something a wealthy person can hang in their minimalist foyer. They don't want something that makes you contemplate the meaningless void of existence. I told her, as nicely as I could, don't you think it needs a little light? Just a touch of warmth, maybe? And she just looked at me with those big, tired eyes and said, it's not meant to be a happy painting, Sierra. I know it's not meant to be happy. But it was going to be a failure. I could see it as clear as day, all that work, all that sacrifice for nothing. She was going to get her heart broken, and I just couldn't stand by and watch it happen. I couldn't let her self-destruct like that. She was too close to it, too lost in her own gloomy little world to see the obvious truth. Someone had to save her from herself. So the deadline is getting closer, right? Like 3 days away, and Eliza is a wreck. A complete, total, non-functional wreck. She's picking at her cuticles until they bleed, calling me in a panic at midnight because she thinks the hue of a single shadow in the corner is off by a nanometer. It was painful to watch. She was drowning in the details, completely losing the plot. She's got this incredible talent, but she's her own worst enemy, always has been. Too sensitive, too wrapped up in her own little bubble of feelings to see the big picture. That afternoon, she was out. She had to go pick up this ridiculously expensive, museum-grade, custom-built frame she'd ordered from some artisan woodworker miles away. The studio was empty. It was like the universe was handing me an engraved invitation. I'd let myself in with the key she gave me ages ago. I was supposed to be watering her wilting spider plant, being the responsible friend. The moment I walked in, the painting just sucked all the air out of the room. There it was, Echo, sitting on the main easel, looking even more gray and hopeless than I remembered. It wasn't just sitting there, it was sulking. It was daring you to feel good about anything, and that's when it hit me. It wasn't just an idea, it was a revelation. A moment of pure, unadulterated clarity. I knew what it needed. It was so obvious, so simple, I couldn't believe she hadn't seen it herself after 6 months of staring at it. It didn't need a new frame or a different varnish. It needed a focal point. It needed hope. I didn't even hesitate. It felt destined. It felt like I was an instrument of fate, correcting a tiny error in the cosmos. I have my own little art kit I carry around, full of my acrylics. They're my personality in a tube, bright, fast, decisive. You put them on, they dry in 10 minutes, they're done. Hers, God, her oils take forever. They brood, they have to be coaxed, they change their minds. It's exhausting just thinking about it. This wasn't about the boring art school rule of not mixing acrylics and oils. Rules are for people who lack vision. This was about saving my friend's career. This was an emergency intervention. I dug out my tube of cadmium yellow. The brightest, most optimistic yellow on my palette, a real sunshine in a tube yellow. I squeezed a generous blob onto a clean corner of her palette. The paint felt thick and confident. I picked up one of her smaller brushes and I went for it. In the top right corner, where the sky was this miserable swirl of charcoal and lavender, I painted a sun. The thick acrylic paste went over the still slightly tacky oil surface. It felt a little weird, like spreading frosting on a steak, but I pushed the thought away. This was for her own good. I didn't just paint a circle, I painted my kind of sun, a proper happy sun with thick, confident rays shooting out from it. And then the master stroke. I gave it a big, friendly, cartoonish smile right in the middle. The kind of smile that says, "Cheer up, buttercup." It was perfect, it was like a wink. It completely changed the entire mood of the piece. It went from "I want to lie down in traffic" to "Hey, maybe everything's not so bad after all." I stood back, my heart actually pounding with pride, admiring my work. The yellow was so bold, so unapologetic against the murky oils. It was exactly the pop of life it needed. I hadn't just fixed a painting, I had fixed the problem. I had given her the winning edge. I honestly couldn't wait to see the look on her face. I was already practicing my humble, "oh, it was nothing really" speech in my head. I was a genius. I was the best friend anyone could ever ask for. So I'm standing there, practically glowing with my own brilliance when I hear her key in the lock. The jingle is cheerful, normal. I quickly put my brush down, wipe my fingers on a rag, and try to look casual, like I'd just been admiring her work. My heart is thumping, but it's a good thump. The kind of thumping you get right before the birthday girl walks into the surprise party you've planned. Eliza walks in, backwards, dragging this enormous, heavy-looking wooden frame. She's flushed from the effort, her hair has escaped its bun, and she looks utterly exhausted but triumphant. "God, that was an ordeal," she starts, finally maneuvering the frame through the door and leaning it against the wall. "The traffic was a nightmare, and this thing weighs a ton, but the guy did an incredible job. The grain is perfect," she trails off. She's turned around now. Her eyes have landed on the easel. And then nothing, just silence. A silence so heavy and so absolute it felt like the air had turned to concrete. She didn't move, she didn't breathe. Her hand, which had been reaching up to fix her hair, just froze midair. I watched her stare at the painting, at my son. The blood literally drained from her face. I mean, I've read that phrase in books, but I'd never seen it happen. She went from flushed and alive to a ghastly, waxy white in about 3 seconds. The silence stretched. It became uncomfortable. My own smugness started to curdle a little in my stomach. "So," I finally say, my voice cracking the quiet like a whip. I'm trying to sound breezy, confident. "What do you think?" I felt like it just needed a little optimism, to make it more accessible for the judges. A little bit of light at the end of the tunnel. She still doesn't say anything. She takes a slow, deliberate step towards the easel, then another. Her movements are robotic, like a sleepwalker. She's so close now her nose is almost touching the canvas. I can see her shoulders starting to shake, just barely. For a second, I think she's laughing, a hysterical, shocked laugh. I brace myself for the hug, but it's not a laugh. She turns her head and looks at me, and her eyes, God, I'll never forget that look. It wasn't anger, it wasn't sadness. It was empty, like I was looking at a stranger. A stranger she didn't just dislike, but that she didn't even recognize. "What did you do?" she whispers. Her voice is a ghost, a thread of sound. "I helped," I say, my own voice a little too loud, a little too defensive now. "Eli, it was too depressing. No one was going to vote for it. I just gave it a little sparkle. It's for your own good." She looks back at the painting, at the smiling yellow sun I'd so lovingly painted. And now, under her intense, horrified gaze, I can see it too. The thick acrylic paint, drying faster than the oil, was already starting to exert a terrible pressure. It was creating this weird, cracked texture, like the sun was getting a horrible skin disease. It was contracting, pulling the delicate, translucent layers of oil paint apart. It wasn't a sun, it was a scar, a festering chemical wound on the surface of her work. You ruined it, she says. Her voice is flat dead. This isn't help, Sierra. She finally looks back at me, and now there are tears silently streaming down her face, but her expression is still terrifyingly calm. My mother, the last peaceful day we had, the sky looked just like that. That quiet gray was her favorite. She said it was the only time the world felt soft. Her voice breaks on the last word. You took my mother's last echo and you burned it with your son. And my whole world just tilted. Her mom who died of depression 2 years ago, I knew that, of course I knew that. But I never connected it. The grays, the silence, the oppressive weight of the painting, it was all for her. It was her memory, it was the echo. And I, in my infinite, idiotic wisdom, had drawn a stupid, smiling face all over it. After that, after she said that about her mom, the whole world just went into slow motion. I tried to apologize, I think, the words were bubbling up in my throat. I didn't know, I'm so sorry, I'm such an idiot, but none of them seemed to make it out of my mouth. All I could do was stand there, my own stupid smile frozen on my face, while her world and mine collapsed. She didn't scream, she didn't throw things, that would have been easier, you know. If she'd just lost it, I could have dealt with that, but she was so methodical. She walked over to her phone, her movements still eerily calm, and made a call. Hi, she said, her voice perfectly level. I need to withdraw my submission for the exhibition. Yes, Eliza Renaud, that's right. No, there's been an accident with the piece. It's been irreparably damaged. Irreparably damaged. She said it while looking right at me, then she hung up. And that was when the cutting began. It was a digital execution, swift and silent. I saw her do it. She opened her contacts, found my name, and I watched her thumb press block. Then she went to Instagram, then Facebook. Block, block. No ceremony, no final words. Just the quiet, efficient clicks of a person systematically erasing another from their life. In the days that followed, I became a ghost. I texted, the messages stayed green. I called, it went straight to that generic voicemail message. I even went to her studio, but she'd changed the locks. I tried reaching out through our mutual friends, desperate for some kind of bridge. Our friend Maya finally called me back, her voice full of a pity that felt worse than anger. Sierra, you need to stop, she said, and I could hear her sigh through the phone. I talked to her. She's not angry anymore, she's just done. But did you tell her I was sorry? Did you tell her I'd pay to have it restored? I'll do anything. I was practically begging. She knows you didn't mean it, Sierra. She told me to tell you that she even in a way forgives you. A wave of relief washed over me so intense it made me dizzy. Oh, thank God. So she'll talk to me. And that's when Maya delivered the final blow. No, she said softly. She said, I forgive her, but I can't ever let her back into my life. Ever, she said, you're not safe for her art or for her heart. I'm sorry, Sierra, it's over. The final brutal irony came a week later. A package arrived for me. It had been mailed the day before the incident. It was from a fancy art supply store. Inside was a professional set of acrylic paints. Every color I could ever want, the expensive, high-pigment kind I'd always drooled over but never bought for myself. Tucked inside was a small card in Eliza's perfect, elegant script. It read, for Sierra, so you can always paint the world as bright and sunny as you see it. Love, Eli. I just sat there on my floor, surrounded by all that useless, brilliant color, and held a card that felt like a tombstone. The party was unavoidable. It was for Maya's 30th, and not going would have been a bigger statement than going. It would have been admitting defeat, so I went. I put on my best dress, did my makeup, and practiced a smile in the mirror that didn't look like my face was about to shatter. For the first hour, it was okay. I stayed in a safe corner talking to people I knew wouldn't bring her up, but then she walked in, and of course, she didn't just walk in, she arrived. She was with some guy, a handsome, older man in a tweed jacket who looked important. Eliza herself, she looked incredible. She was wearing a simple black dress, her hair was up, and she was laughing. A real, deep, genuine laugh. She looked lighter, she looked free. My entire body went cold, it was a physical reaction. I watched her move through the room, a glass of champagne in her hand, greeting people. She was magnetic, everyone wanted to talk to her. I saw the guy in the tweed jacket introduce her to a woman who I recognized as a major gallery curator. They were all talking and smiling, and then it happened. Her eyes, just for a second, scanned the room and met mine. There was no hatred, no anger, no sadness, there was nothing. It was the polite, fleeting glance you give a stranger when you're looking for the bar. A flicker of non-recognition, and then she turned back to the curator, completely engrossed in her conversation again. In that moment, I realized the horrible truth. This wasn't a tragedy for her anymore, it was a footnote, an origin story maybe, the catalyst that pushed her out of her shell. She had moved on, she was thriving. I was the one who was stuck. I was the one still living in the wreckage of that afternoon, replaying my magnificent, world destroying act of kindness. She was fine, and I was this. A ghost at a party watching the person I'd supposedly helped build a better life on the ashes of what I'd destroyed. How dare she be okay? How dare she look so happy? After everything, it just wasn't fair. I mean, honestly, wasn't I just trying to help?